Ethan Montgomery, 28, is a young, successful CEO of a prestigious family-owned corporation in Philadelphia. He looks perfect on the outside, but he is quite lonely on the inside. Now meet Olivia Hayes, 25, a smart, independent girl whom the Montgomery family loved and took care of as a daughter and adopted sister during her most difficult teenage years after a tragedy. For the Montgomery family, Olivia is a relative, an indispensable part. But many years later, when they met again as adults, something taboo happened. Love blossomed between Ethan and Olivia. Not brotherly love, but passionate love. They were more aware than anyone of the wrong, the fragile moral line they were crossing in the eyes of their family and society. And so they decided to keep it a secret. A passionate love, but had to take place in the dark, secretly, with the constant fear of being discovered. How long can they hide from their observant family, especially their loving mother? How terrible will their family's reaction be when they learn the truth? Is this love strong enough to face the coming storm, or will it be suffocated by guilt and family pressure? The burning question of the definition of family and whether love can overcome all barriers, even the most complex psychological and moral barriers. Let me uncover this secret with you. Ethan Montgomery, at the age of 28, is already a respected name in the Philadelphia business world. He is the CEO of Montgomery Enterprises, a multi-industry corporation that his family has built and developed over many generations. Young, intelligent, ambitious, and wearing a flawless, elegant appearance, Ethan is an ideal model that many admire. But behind that success lies an invisible pressure, the burden of family expectations and a somewhat lonely personal life. His office on the top floor of the Montgomery building, with a panoramic view of the historic city, is elegant but orderly to the point of lacking personal touch, reflecting in part the owner's self-containedness and intense focus on work. He is accustomed to superficial social relationships, polite smiles at charity parties, but craves a genuine connection, something beyond numbers and business strategies. A warm but complicated part of Ethan's life is tied to Olivia Hayes. Olivia is not his biological sister, but she was once an indispensable part of the Montgomery family. When Olivia was 15, after a tragic event took both her parents away, the Montgomery family, who were close friends of her parents, opened their arms to take her in. During those 3 important years of high school, Olivia lived in the Montgomery mansion, loved and cared for as a member of the family, especially by Eleanor, Ethan's mother. Ethan, then a teenager, always saw Olivia as a little sister who needed to be protected, although sometimes he felt something strange, a vague vibration that he tried to ignore. After graduating from high school and receiving a scholarship to college, Olivia decided to move out on her own, a decision that the Montgomery family respected, although with some regret. Now, at the age of 25, Olivia Hayes is an independent, mature young woman. She lives in a cozy little apartment in the city center, works at an old library that she loves. She still maintains a good relationship with the Montgomery family, still calls Eleanor regularly to check in, and is occasionally invited to family gatherings during the holidays. She was infinitely grateful to them, but was also always aware of her different position, a person who was taken in, not completely belonging to their upper-class world. Deep inside, the image of Ethan, her intelligent, talented, but somewhat distant adopted brother, always occupied a special place, a secret, complicated feeling between admiration, gratitude, and a bit of forbidden romance that she had never dared to confess or even admit to herself. She always tried to keep a proper, professional distance whenever she met him. Fate had arranged for them to have an unexpected reunion, not in the formal atmosphere of a family party, but in a much more ordinary situation. Mrs. Eleanor had a slight cold, and Olivia, out of habit, stopped by the Montgomery mansion one weekend afternoon to visit her, bringing some homemade chicken soup. She did not expect that Ethan would also be there. He had stopped by to visit his mother after a stressful week at work. When Olivia entered the living room and saw Ethan sitting and talking with his mother, her heart skipped a beat. It had been a long time since they had seen each other in such an intimate space. Ethan was equally surprised to see Olivia. He stood up to greet her, and in the moment their eyes met, they both felt something different. Ethan was surprised by Olivia's change. She was no longer the shy, sad teenager she used to be. She had become a beautiful, graceful young woman with intelligent eyes and a warm smile. The independence and self-control that radiated from her had a strange attraction that he had never noticed before. Olivia also looked at Ethan with different eyes. He was still handsome and elegant as usual, but she saw a hint of fatigue on his face, saw the gentleness in the way he talked to his mother. He was no longer the perfect, aloof CEO image that she often saw at events. He was closer, more ordinary, and it made her heart flutter dangerously. The conversation between the three of them that day was quite natural, but there was always an awkwardness and a clear awareness of each other's presence between Ethan and Olivia. Eleanor, with her elder's perceptiveness, seemed to sense the strange atmosphere, but she only smiled subtly. When Olivia was about to leave, Ethan offered to take her home. "It's starting to rain outside," he said, a perfect excuse. Olivia hesitated for a moment before agreeing. In Ethan's luxury car, the space was silent except for the sound of falling rain and soft classical music. This silence was not uncomfortable, but filled with unspoken emotions. They made a few small talk about work, about the city, but both felt a sweet tension creeping in. When the car stopped in front of Olivia's apartment building, the rain had not stopped. Ethan looked at her, a sudden thought coming to him. "How about I buy you a cup of coffee? There's a good one nearby." Olivia was surprised by the unexpected offer. She knew she should decline, should keep her distance. But Ethan's earnest gaze, along with the strong emotions rising inside her, made it impossible for her to refuse. "Yes," she replied softly. In the cozy little coffee shop, far from the glamorous world of the Montgomery family, they had their first real conversation as two independent adults. They talked about books, about music, about their dreams, and even their secret fears. Ethan was fascinated by Olivia's intelligence, sensitivity, and rich soul. Olivia was touched by his sincere listening, his intelligence, and the moments when he revealed the loneliness behind his successful appearance. The spark of attraction was ignited stronger than ever. But along with that came confusion and a clear awareness of the dangerous line they were approaching. He was the son of the family that had taken her in, the one she still called him in name. This feeling, however real, carried with it the taboo and the risk of hurting the people they loved. After that fateful coffee date, Ethan and Olivia could not return to their previous, normal state. The attraction between them was too strong, the harmony of their souls too obvious. They began to find excuses to see each other more often, although they were still very reserved and aware of the complexity of their relationship. Ethan might drop by the library where Olivia worked, pretending to look for a rare book. Olivia might send Ethan an interesting article in his field of interest. The random text messages became more frequent. The calls lasted longer than expected. Each time they meet, they discover new things about each other, and their feelings grow deeper. They share their secret thoughts, dreams, and hurts that they have never dared to tell anyone else. Ethan finds in Olivia the understanding and genuine warmth that he has always lacked in his competitive and superficial world. Olivia finds in Ethan the admiration, encouragement, and strong shoulder that she has always longed for. The fragile line between foster brotherhood and romantic love is finally broken on a hot summer evening. Ethan invites Olivia to an outdoor concert at the park they both love. Under the starry sky, in the romantic atmosphere of melodious music, they sit next to each other, clearly feeling each other's vibrations. When the concert ends and they walk on the empty street under the yellow lights, Ethan suddenly stops, turns to look at Olivia, his eyes filled with so many pent-up emotions. "Olivia," he said softly, "I can't pretend anymore." He gently lifted her hand, looking into her eyes, wide with surprise and confusion. "I know this might be wrong, that it might hurt a lot of people, but I can't control my feelings anymore. I love you, Olivia. Not as a brother, but as a man loves a woman." Ethan's sudden confession stunned Olivia, her heart pounding wildly. This was what she had both longed for and feared for so long. Tears began to roll down her cheeks. Ethan. I dot, dot, dot. She loved him too. Loved him deeply. But the fear and guilt were too great. Seeing the struggle in her eyes, Ethan didn't wait for an answer. He gently pulled her into his arms, and in that moment, under the starlight, he placed a kiss on her lips. The kiss was both gentle and passionate, containing all the love, desire, and despair that had been suppressed for so long. Olivia closed her eyes, responding to his kiss, letting her reason fade away, leaving only the true emotions that were surging. But right after that passionate kiss was a cruel sobriety. They separated, looking at each other with eyes that were both happy and frightened. They had crossed the line of no return. They knew that this love, if discovered, would cause a huge storm in the Montgomery family, who loved and took care of Olivia. "What are we going to do, Ethan?" Olivia whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Ethan confessed, holding her tighter. "But one thing I know for sure. I can't lose you." He looked straight into her eyes, his gaze determined. "This relationship, we have to keep it a secret. Absolutely a secret. No one can know, especially my parents, until I find a way." Olivia nodded through tears. She knew this was the only way, even if it was full of thorns and sins. Loving Ethan was already uncontrollable, but for this love to survive, they had to hide it in the dark. From that night, their love began its secret journey. Secret dates at strange cafes, deserted movie theaters, walks in little-known parks. They had to be careful with every text message, every call. When appearing at family events, they had to put on the guise of foster brother and foster sister, keeping a polite distance, speaking polite words, while their hearts were screaming for each other. The contrast between the passionate, happy moments when they were alone and the tension and restraint of having to act in front of everyone made both of them tired. The deeper their love, the greater their guilt and fear. Ethan was tormented by the feeling that he was deceiving his parents, whom he respected deeply. He was afraid of hurting Eleanor, who had always loved Olivia like her own daughter. He worried about society's reaction, about the impact on the family's reputation and the company if the truth was revealed. Olivia lived in no less torment. The happiness of being with Ethan always comes with the feeling of being ungrateful, betraying the kindness of the Montgomery family. She fears the prospect of being rejected, of being seen as a destroyer, of losing the only family she has after so many events. That fear sometimes makes her want to step back, wanting to end this perverse relationship. Those internal conflicts sometimes also erupt into small arguments between them, stemming from tension, insecurity, and uncertainty about the future. Love in the dark, although romantic, is also full of thorns and challenges. No matter how carefully hidden a secret is, it is difficult to last forever without leaving a trace. The subtle changes in Ethan and Olivia's behavior begin to attract the attention of those around them, especially those closest to the Montgomery family. Ethan, who had always spent most of his time on work and social events arranged by his family, now often had unscheduled meetings in the evenings or on weekends, secret business trips that he did not clearly explain. He also seemed happier and more cheerful, but sometimes he was pensive and absent-minded in a difficult way. Olivia, on the other hand, seemed to try to avoid the Montgomery family more than before. Calls to ask about Mrs. Eleanor became less frequent. Invitations to family dinners were often politely declined by her with the excuse of being busy. When forced to be present, she seemed a bit confused and uncomfortable when meeting Ethan in front of everyone. Mrs. Eleanor Montgomery, with her mother's keen intuition and love for both children, even though one was not born to her, was the first to sense the difference. She noticed that Ethan's gaze towards Olivia was no longer just the concern of a brother, but something deeper and more intense. She also saw Olivia's shyness and avoidance whenever Ethan was near. Her subtle probing questions about Ethan's love life and Olivia's current life, although not directly mentioning the suspicion, were enough to make both of them feel worried and uneasy. The risk of being discovered became more present than ever. One weekend evening, Ethan and Olivia decided to venture out to a jazz performance at a small club, a place where they thought they would not meet anyone they knew. But ironically, a close friend of Mr. Montgomery, who was also a member of the company's board of directors, was also there with his wife. He saw Ethan and Olivia sitting together in a hidden corner, their gestures somewhat more intimate than usual. Although he did not say anything at that time, his scrutinizing eyes and meaningful nods when saying goodbye to Ethan when leaving sowed great fear in his heart. The tension increased when the Montgomery family began to pressure Ethan about marriage. He was 28 years old, the only heir, and his parents expected him to find a wife who was well-matched, and would ensure the family's future. They began to introduce him to the daughters of their business partners, beautiful, talented, and well-born girls. This pressure made Ethan feel suffocated, and also made Olivia even more self-conscious and insecure about her position in his life. Would he have the courage to refuse those arrangements for her, a person who had nothing but love and a complicated past? The prolonged tension, the fear of being discovered, the feeling of guilt and pressure from all sides began to erode their secret relationship. Small arguments appeared more frequently. Olivia felt tired of living in the dark, without a clear identity, always having to be afraid. She wondered if this love was worth giving up everything, if she was being selfish by keeping Ethan by her side. Ethan also felt exhausted from having to constantly lie, having to hide his true feelings, having to face the struggle between love and responsibility to his family. "We can't go on like this, Ethan," Olivia said through tears after a heated argument that began when Ethan was forced to cancel their date to have dinner with a girl his mother had arranged for him. "I feel like a thief, stealing someone else's happiness. Maybe we should stop." Olivia's proposal to break up was like a knife stabbing Ethan's heart. He knew she was right about the difficulty, but the thought of leaving her was something he couldn't accept. Darkness was looming over their love, and they knew that it was time to make a final choice, no matter how painful. Olivia's proposal to break up not only failed to extinguish the fire of love in Ethan, but instead ignited his determination. He realized that he couldn't live without her, couldn't go back to the empty, stressful life he had before. He loved Olivia, loved her as a person, loved the warmth and honesty she brought. He couldn't let fear and prejudice destroy the only love that had ever meant anything to him. It was time to confront it, to bring the truth to light, no matter the consequences. Ethan decided to have a frank talk with his parents. He chose a quiet weekend evening, when the three of them were alone in the familiar living room of the Montgomery mansion. The atmosphere was initially tense. Ethan began with difficulty, his voice trembling slightly but full of determination. He told them about his fateful encounter with Olivia, about the feelings that had blossomed, about his deep love for her, and about the secret relationship they had tried to hide. The Montgomerys' reactions were as he had expected: shock, disbelief, then disappointment and anger. Eleanor, who had always loved Olivia, felt deeply hurt by the deception. "How could you two do this to me?" she choked. "Olivia, I thought of you as my own daughter." Mr. Montgomery was disappointed with the lack of thought, the risk of affecting the family's reputation. "Do you know what you are doing, Ethan? She is the one this family raised. How will society look at us?" Those words were like knives stabbing both Ethan and Olivia, whom Ethan had convinced to come and confront him. But this time, Ethan did not back down. He stood up, held Olivia's hand tightly, and looked straight into his parents' eyes. "I know this is hard to accept," he said, his voice firmer. "I know we were wrong to hide it, but my love for Olivia is real, the most meaningful thing in my life. She is not my sister, mum and dad. She is the woman I love and want to be with for the rest of my life. Our past as a family cannot change our current feelings. I am sorry for disappointing you, but I cannot give her up." He looked at Olivia, his eyes filled with absolute love and protection. Olivia, strengthened by Ethan's determination, also found her voice. She expressed her endless gratitude to the Montgomerys for taking her in during the most difficult years. But she also affirmed her sincere love for Ethan and her desire to build her own happiness. "I will never forget my family," she said through tears. "But my love for Ethan is real. Please understand us." The tense confrontation dragged on. There was no easy acceptance. Mr. and Mrs. Montgomery needed time to think, to face their own complicated emotions. But Ethan and Olivia's sincerity, intense love and determination to protect their love moved them somewhat. They saw their son for the first time, truly living for his own feelings, not for responsibility or expectation. They also saw Olivia not as a predator, but as a strong, independent woman who truly loved their son. The road to complete acceptance may be long and not easy. The relationship between Ethan, Olivia, and the Montgomery family may go through many challenges, distances, and awkwardness. But most importantly, the secret has been brought to light. Their love no longer has to be hidden in the dark. Ethan and Olivia choose to be together, facing all difficulties together. They build a life of their own, based on love, respect, and understanding. Ethan continues to run Montgomery Enterprises, but now he is a more thoughtful leader, balancing work and personal life, appreciating true emotional values. Olivia continues her beloved work at the library, while also finding confidence and a place in her relationship with Ethan and the Montgomery family, albeit in a new way. One beautiful afternoon in Philadelphia, Ethan and Olivia walk hand in hand through Fairmount Park. They stop on the old bridge, looking down at the sparkling Schuylkill River. There is no fear or guilt, only peace and happiness. "I thought our love would always exist in the dark," Olivia whispers, resting her head on Ethan's shoulder. Ethan smiles, squeezing her hand. "Light always wins over darkness, Olivia. We just have to be brave enough to step out and face it." Their love, which originated from a special situation and full of obstacles, finally found its way to shine. It is a testament to the power of true love, which can overcome even the deepest prejudices and heal the wounds of the heart, bringing happiness and truth to the brave hearts who dare to love and dare to fight. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you like this content, don't forget to click like, share this story with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more meaningful stories.